Commander Jake Morrison stood at the window of Earth Defense Station Alpha watching the alien ships that had trapped humanity for 6 long months. The massive vessels hung in space like dark metal clouds blocking every path to the stars. Each ship was 10 times larger than anything humans had ever built, and they moved with perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single mind. Jake had been a space pilot for 20 years before the aliens came, and he had never seen anything like the hegemony fleet. Their ships were smooth and black with no visible weapons, but everyone knew they carried enough firepower to turn Earth into floating dust. The aliens had made that very clear when they first arrived, and demanded that humans stay within their own solar system forever. Lieutenant Lisa Brooks walked up behind Jake, carrying a cup of coffee and looking as tired as everyone else on the station. She had been working double shifts since the blockade began, trying to find any weakness in the alien formation, but so far nothing had worked. The hegemony ships were positioned perfectly to stop any human vessel from leaving the solar system, and they had already destroyed 3 ships that tried to run the blockade. Lisa handed Jake the coffee and pointed at her scanner display showing the alien fleet positions. The ships had not moved even 1 meter in the past week, and they ignored all human attempts at communication. It was like trying to talk to a wall that could vaporize entire cities if it wanted to. The whole mess had started when humans first met the aliens at Alpha Centauri 18 months ago. Captain Steve Johnson had been leading a peaceful exploration mission when they encountered a hegemony science vessel studying the star system. The meeting should have been historic and wonderful, but everything went wrong when the alien ship suddenly attacked without warning. Captain Johnson had defended his crew the only way he could by firing back and destroying the alien vessel, but that single action had doomed all of humanity to imprisonment. The Hegemony Council declared that humans were too violent and dangerous to be allowed into galactic civilization, and they sent a massive fleet to make sure Earth stayed isolated forever. Jake sipped his coffee and watched the alien ships maintaining their perfect blockade formation. Each vessel was positioned to cover multiple escape routes, and their combined firepower could stop anything humans might throw at them. The blockade was mathematically perfect and completely unbreakable using conventional weapons or tactics. Dr. Amy Carter arrived on the bridge carrying a tablet computer and looking excited about something. She was the chief scientist for several classified military projects and had been spending most of her time in the deep research labs beneath the station. Jake had heard rumors about something called Project ZEUS, but all information about it was restricted to the highest security levels. Amy walked directly to Jake and requested a private meeting in his office. Once inside with the door sealed, she activated a privacy shield that would prevent any electronic surveillance from recording their conversation. Her hands were shaking slightly as she pulled up files on her tablet showing complex technical diagrams that made no sense to Jake. The diagrams showed what looked like a massive space platform covered with strange equipment that seemed to bend, light around itself. There were energy conduits that twisted in impossible directions and metal structures that looked more like art than engineering. At the center of everything was a device that looked ancient and alien, but definitely not made by the hegemony. Amy explained that Project ZEUS was based on technology found in underwater ruins near Greece. Ancient artifacts that had been dismissed as primitive mechanical computers were actually sophisticated control systems for manipulating fundamental forces of the universe. The Greeks had somehow developed science that was thousands of years ahead of modern human understanding. The ZEUS platform would use this ancient technology combined with the best modern human engineering to create a weapon system unlike anything ever built. It would not just fire energy beams or launch missiles, but actually manipulate space and time itself to achieve effects that would seem like magic to anyone who witnessed them. Jake stared at the diagrams, trying to understand what he was seeing. The platform looked impossibly complex, and the technology seemed far beyond anything humans should be capable of building. But Amy insisted that construction was already underway in secret facilities throughout the solar system, and the first test would happen within weeks. The most amazing part was that the ancient Greeks had apparently built similar devices in the distant past and used them to achieve technological civilization that eventually transcended physical reality entirely. They had left behind instructions and control mechanisms for their descendants to find when humanity was ready to inherit their legacy. Amy closed the files and looked directly at Jake with absolute confidence in her voice. The hegemony thought they had caged a primitive species that could be controlled through superior firepower, but they were about to learn that humanity carried the genetic and cultural inheritance of beings who had once wielded the power of gods themselves. Project ZEUS would break the blockade and establish humanity as a major power in galactic civilization. But more importantly, it would prove that some cages are meant to be broken by those strong enough and clever enough to find the key that unlocks them. 3 weeks after Amy Carter revealed Project ZEUS to Commander Morrison construction crews were working around the clock in the asteroid belt building, something that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. The ZEUS platform was taking shape in absolute secrecy, with components being manufactured in dozens of different locations and assembled by workers who only knew their small part of the overall project. Chief Engineer Ben Parker supervised the installation of crystalline matrices that seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. The crystals hummed with barely contained energy and made the hair on his arms stand up whenever he got too close to them. These were not normal human materials, but somehow they had been manufactured using techniques derived from ancient Greek, mathematical formulas found carved into stone tablets. The work was dangerous and exhausting, but Ben had never been part of anything so important. Every piece of equipment seemed to exist at the edge of what was scientifically possible, and some components appeared to violate basic laws of physics by generating more energy than they consumed. Yet everything worked together with perfect harmony, as if the entire design had been tested and proven thousands of years ago. Technician Kate Sullivan monitored power readings from her control station and watched numbers that climbed higher every day, even though they had not activated any primary systems yet. The ZEUS platform was somehow drawing energy from sources that human science could not identify or measure. It was as if the ancient technology was connecting to fundamental forces that existed everywhere in the universe but remained invisible to modern instruments. Dr. Carter arrived from Earth carrying the final component that had been excavated from ruins beneath the Parthenon in Athens. The device looked like a bronze mechanical computer covered with gears and dials, but when connected to the ZEUS platform, it caused every system to suddenly synchronize with mathematical precision. Ancient Greek engineering merged seamlessly with modern human technology to create something greater than either could achieve alone. The component from the Parthenon was more than just a control mechanism. It was a key that unlocked access to cosmic forces that the original creators had somehow learned to harness and direct. The Greeks had not been primitive people telling stories about gods throwing lightning bolts from the sky. They had been advanced scientists who actually possessed the ability to manipulate fundamental forces of reality itself. Captain Ryan Hughes delivered additional artifacts that had been recovered from underwater sites throughout the Mediterranean Sea. Each piece fit perfectly into the ZEUS platform design and activated systems that human engineers had built without fully understanding their purpose. It was becoming clear that modern humanity had been unconsciously following blueprints left behind by their ancient predecessors. The most remarkable discovery was that the ancient Greeks had achieved technological transcendence not through gradual development, but through sudden breakthrough understanding of how consciousness could interact directly with quantum fields that underlay physical reality. They had learned to think reality into new configurations and had built machines that could amplify and focus those mental abilities. Ben Parker watched as the final connections were made, and ZEUS came fully online for the first time. Every display showed perfect green status indicators, and the platform began generating power levels that exceeded the output of entire cities. But more importantly, it was creating gravitational anomalies that could be shaped and directed with incredible precision. The test protocols called for targeting a large asteroid that posed no threat to anyone, but would demonstrate ZEUS capabilities in spectacular fashion. Kate Sullivan programmed the targeting coordinates, while Dr. Carter monitored the ancient control systems that somehow knew exactly how to focus cosmic forces into concentrated beams of destructive energy. What happened next exceeded every prediction and shattered every assumption about the limits of human technology. ZEUS did not simply destroy the target asteroid, but converted its entire mass into pure energy that could be channeled and redirected at will. The platform had essentially created a controlled fusion reaction from solid rock and metal, then shaped that energy into whatever form was needed. Captain Hughes recorded the test results and immediately transmitted them to Admiral Susan Wells aboard the flagship UES Olympus, hidden behind Jupiter. The implications were staggering because ZEUS was not just a weapon system, but a fundamental breakthrough in energy manipulation that would revolutionize human civilization forever. But the hegemony had detected the exotic energy signature from their blockade positions, and they were not pleased. Within hours, human monitoring stations intercepted alien communications, demanding immediate explanations for unauthorized weapons testing. The tone of the messages made it clear that the aliens considered ZEUS to be a direct threat to their technological superiority. Dr. Carter studied the ancient Greek texts with new understanding, as she realized that the original creators had faced similar situations. They had been forced to defend themselves against hostile alien species that viewed human potential as a threat to galactic stability. The ZEUS technology was not just a weapon, but a graduation gift from one generation of humanity to another. The hegemony response was swift and unambiguous. Any further testing of prohibited weapons technology would result in complete sterilization of Earth and every human settlement throughout the solar system. The Alien Council had decided that humanity was becoming too dangerous to contain, and preparations for planetary bombardment would begin immediately. Admiral Wells received the ultimatum and knew that humanity had reached a moment of truth that would determine whether the species survived to reach the stars or died trapped in their own solar system by beings who feared what humans might become if given the chance to develop their full potential. Admiral Susan Wells stood in the command center of the UES Olympus, reading the hegemony ultimatum for the third time, and feeling her anger grow with each word. The aliens were demanding that humans immediately surrender all exotic weapons technology and submit to permanent technological monitoring by hegemony oversight committees. Any refusal would result in the complete destruction of Earth and every human settlement in the solar system. The message made it clear that the Hegemony Council viewed humanity as a species that had developed too quickly and posed a direct threat to galactic stability. They claimed that human aggression combined with advanced technology would inevitably lead to widespread destruction and chaos throughout civilized space. Therefore, humans must be either controlled completely or eliminated entirely. Communications. Officer Greg Thompson reported that similar ultimatums were being broadcast to every human facility and settlement with countdown timers showing exactly 48 hours before the hegemony fleet would begin bombardment operations. The aliens were not negotiating or offering alternatives. They had decided that humanity was too dangerous to exist as a free species. Admiral Wells opened a secure channel to ZEUS platform and spoke directly with Dr. Carter, who confirmed that all systems were fully operational and ready for combat deployment. The ancient Greek technology had integrated perfectly with modern human engineering to create a weapons platform that could manipulate fundamental forces of reality with surgical precision. The tactical situation was challenging because the hegemony blockade fleet consisted of 47 massive dreadnoughts positioned to cover every possible escape route from the solar system. Each alien vessel carried enough firepower to destroy entire fleets of human ships, and their defensive shields could withstand direct hits from stellar-class weapons. Conventional human military forces would be completely useless against such overwhelming technological superiority. But ZEUS was not a conventional weapon system. The platform could create localized distortions in space-time that would bypass every known defensive technology and strike targets through dimensional manipulation rather than direct energy projection. The ancient Greeks had learned to wage war by rewriting the laws of physics in small, localized areas. Dr. Carter explained that ZEUS could generate controlled gravitational anomalies that would cause enemy weapons to turn against their own ships. It could also create temporary wormholes that would allow human forces to appear anywhere in the solar system without warning. Most importantly, it could tap directly into quantum vacuum energy to power effects that would seem like magic to any. Observer Admiral Wells studied the tactical displays showing both the ZEUS platform position and the hegemony fleet formation. The aliens had arranged their ships to provide mutual support and overlapping fields of fire, but they had made their plans based on conventional physics and normal weapons technology. They had no idea that humans now possessed the ability to manipulate reality itself. The decision to engage was not made lightly because failure would mean the complete extinction of humanity. But Admiral Wells understood that surrendering to hegemony demands would also mean extinction just spread out over a longer time frame. Humans would become a slave species forever prevented from reaching their full potential and eventually bred out of existence through genetic manipulation programs. Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner reported that Earth evacuation procedures were nearly complete, with most of the civilian population safely relocated to underground shelters that could survive orbital bombardment. The planet's defensive grid had been activated, and all military forces were positioned for maximum effect against the expected alien assault. The final preparations took 18 hours, during which ZEUS platform crews ran continuous diagnostic checks and calibration procedures. The ancient control systems required precise mental focus from human operators who had to learn to think in ways that merged consciousness with quantum field manipulation. It was like learning to use muscles that had been dormant for thousands of years. Captain Nicole Foster coordinated the battle plan from ZEUS Command Center while monitoring hegemony fleet movements through long-range sensors. The aliens were maintaining their blockade formation, but had begun charging their primary weapons systems in preparation for the bombardment of Earth. Time was running out for humanity to make its move. Dr. Carter made final adjustments to the targeting computers using formulas that had been carved into stone tablets by ancient Greek mathematicians who understood cosmic forces far better than modern scientists. The ZEUS platform was not just a weapon, but a tool for reshaping reality according to human will and determination. The moment of truth arrived when hegemony fleet commanders transmitted their final warning to Earth, demanding immediate surrender of all human military forces and the destruction of ZEUS platform under alien supervision. Admiral Wells responded by opening a channel to every ship in the blockade fleet and delivering humanity's answer in words that would echo throughout galactic history. She announced that humanity rejected all hegemony demands and would defend itself using every available means, including technologies that the aliens had never encountered and could not understand. The blockade fleet had 47 ships, but humanity had something far more powerful. They had the legacy of ancient ancestors who had once wielded the power of gods themselves. Admiral Wells gave the order to commence firing, and ZEUS platform began its first real combat operation against an enemy that had seriously underestimated what humans were capable of achieving when their survival was threatened. The aliens were about to learn that some species become more dangerous when cornered, and humanity was definitely one of those species. The battle for human freedom was about to begin, and the outcome would determine whether humanity took its place among the stars or died defending the right to determine its own destiny. The first shot from ZEUS platform created an effect that the hegemony fleet commanders initially dismissed as primitive human desperation. Their sensors detected a minor gravitational disturbance that seemed harmless compared to the massive firepower they possessed. The alien ships maintained their perfect blockade formation, confident that their superior technology would easily handle whatever humans might attempt. They were completely wrong about everything. Weapons Officer Danny Rodriguez monitored the ZEUS targeting systems as they locked onto the lead hegemony dreadnought and began generating a localized space-time distortion field around the massive alien vessel. The effect was subtle, at first appearing as nothing more than a slight shimmer in space, but within seconds it became something far more dramatic and terrifying. The gravitational anomaly caused the alien ship's own defensive shields to invert and collapse inward, creating a cascade failure that turned the vessel's protective systems into a crushing force that compressed the entire hull into a sphere of super-dense metal. The dreadnought imploded from the inside out, while its crew had no time to understand what was happening to them. Captain Foster watched from the ZEUS command center as the alien formation began to break apart in confusion and panic. The hegemony. Fleet had never encountered weapons that could manipulate fundamental forces of reality, and they had no defensive protocols for dealing with attacks that bypassed every known form of protection. Sensor specialist Carl Johnson reported that the remaining hegemony ships were attempting to retreat to safer positions while frantically broadcasting distress signals to their home worlds. The aliens were discovering that their technological superiority meant nothing against weapons that operated outside the normal rules of physics. ZEUS fired again, and this time the target was a cluster of 5 alien vessels that had moved closer together for mutual protection. The platform generated a controlled fusion reaction in the empty space between the ships, converting cosmic background radiation into a miniature star that burned for exactly 30 seconds before being extinguished by precise gravitational manipulation. The energy release vaporized 2 of the alien ships instantly, while the other 3 suffered massive damage from electromagnetic pulse effects that shut down their primary systems. The demonstration proved that ZEUS could create and control nuclear reactions anywhere in space without needing to deploy physical warheads or missiles. Dr. Carter monitored the ancient control systems as they automatically calculated optimal targeting solutions for each remaining enemy vessel. The Greek technology seemed to anticipate every tactical situation and provide perfect responses based on thousands of years of accumulated combat experience. It was like having the greatest military strategists in human history all working together through quantum mechanical consciousness interfaces. The hegemony flagship attempted to coordinate a counterattack by focusing the combined firepower of 20 remaining vessels on the ZEUS platform itself. Their energy beams and particle weapons created a spectacular light show as they struck the area where ZEUS was located, but the platform remained completely undamaged and continued firing with methodical precision. ZEUS had generated a defensive field that existed slightly outside normal space-time, which allowed incoming attacks to pass through harmlessly, while the platform remained fully operational. The ancient Greeks had learned to fight battles from parallel dimensions, where conventional weapons could not reach them. Admiral Wells received reports from throughout the solar system as human forces watched the impossible battle unfolding in deep space. The hegemony fleet that had seemed invincible just hours ago was being systematically destroyed by weapons that seemed to violate every known law of physics and military tactics. The aliens made one final desperate attempt to break the deadlock by launching every fighter and assault craft they possessed in a coordinated swarm attack that should have overwhelmed any defensive system through sheer numbers. Hundreds of small, fast-moving alien craft raced toward ZEUS platform, while the remaining capital ships provided covering fire. ZEUS responded by creating a series of micro-wormholes that redirected each incoming fighter craft into the path of friendly vessels, causing the entire alien attack force to destroy itself through collision and friendly fire incidents. The platform had essentially turned the enemy's numbers advantage into a liability by manipulating space itself to create impossible tactical situations. Within 6 hours of the first shot being fired, the entire hegemony blockade fleet had been destroyed or disabled with 0 human casualties and minimal ammunition expenditure. ZEUS had proven that ancient human technology combined with modern engineering could defeat any conventional military force regardless of numerical or technological advantages. But the most impressive demonstration was yet to come. Dr. Carter activated ZEUS platform's ultimate capability, which was the ability to create stable wormholes connecting any 2 points in space, regardless of distance. The platform opened a portal directly into the hegemony home system and projected a holographic message that appeared simultaneously on every inhabited world in their empire. The message was simple and direct. Humanity had broken free from alien imprisonment and would no longer tolerate any attempts at control or domination. The ZEUS platform would remain active and ready to defend human interests anywhere in the galaxy. Any species that threatened humanity would face the same fate as the blockade fleet. The wormhole remained open for exactly 1 hour, giving hegemony leaders time to witness ZEUS platform capabilities and understand that humanity now possessed faster than light travel technology that made blockades and containment completely meaningless. Humans could go anywhere they wanted and defend themselves against any threat using weapons that redefined what was possible in modern warfare. When the portal finally closed, Admiral Wells broadcast a message to every human settlement throughout the solar system announcing that the blockade had been broken and humanity was free to explore the galaxy. The cage that had trapped them for 6 months no longer existed, and the species that built it had learned to respect human determination and ingenuity. The destruction of the hegemony blockade fleet sent shockwaves throughout galactic civilization as news of humanity's impossible victory spread to every inhabited star system. Species that had never heard of humans before suddenly found themselves studying reports of weapons technology that seemed to operate outside the known laws of physics and military science. Commander Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck of Earth Defense Station Alpha watching human exploration ships prepare for their first journeys beyond the solar system in over 6 months. The vessels looked small and fragile compared to the massive alien dreadnoughts that had once blocked their path, but they carried crews with the confidence of a species that had just proven it could defend itself against impossible odds. Dr. Amy Carter continued her research into ancient Greek technology, discovering that the ZEUS platform was only the beginning of what their predecessors had left behind. Hidden ruins throughout Earth contained additional artifacts and control systems for manipulating gravitational fields, creating artificial matter, and even controlling the flow of time itself in localized areas. The implications were staggering, because it meant that ancient humanity had achieved technological transcendence that made modern science look primitive by comparison. They had learned to reshape reality through conscious intention, backed by sophisticated machinery that amplified mental energy into physical effects that could alter the fundamental structure of the universe. Captain Ryan Hughes led the first human expedition to Alpha Centauri since the original encounter that had triggered the hegemony blockade. His mission was to establish peaceful contact with any alien species in the system and demonstrate that humans were capable of diplomacy when not threatened with extinction or imprisonment. The journey that had once taken months now required only hours, thanks to wormhole technology derived from ZEUS platform systems. Human ships could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning and return to Earth just as quickly, making it impossible for any hostile force to trap or contain humanity ever again. What Captain Hughes found at Alpha Centauri changed everything humans thought they knew about galactic politics and civilization. The system contained representatives from dozens of different species, all claiming to be refugees from hegemony oppression and eager to form alliances with the humans who had finally stood up to alien tyranny. The aliens explained that the hegemony council had maintained control over galactic civilization for thousands of years by suppressing any species that showed signs of developing advanced technology or independent thinking. Humanity was just the latest in a long line of civilizations that had been caged or destroyed for refusing to accept permanent subservience to alien authority. President Robert Cole received detailed reports about the true nature of galactic politics, from human diplomats who were establishing contact with oppressed species throughout local space. The hegemony had presented itself as a benevolent organization dedicated to maintaining peace, but in reality it was a totalitarian empire that crushed any potential threats to its authority. The ZEUS platform had done more than break a simple blockade. It had shattered the foundation of an oppressive system that had prevented countless species from reaching their full potential. Human victory over the hegemony fleet was inspiring revolutionary movements on hundreds of worlds where enslaved populations were rising up against their alien overlords. Admiral Susan Wells coordinated the deployment of additional ZEUS platforms to protect human exploration fleets and allied species who requested assistance in their own struggles for freedom. The ancient Greek technology could be replicated and improved using modern manufacturing techniques, creating a network of defensive systems that could respond to threats anywhere in the galaxy. The Hegemony Council attempted to negotiate a ceasefire by offering humans limited membership in their organization, with restricted access to certain star systems and trade routes. The proposal was essentially the same cage they had tried to build around Earth, just with slightly larger dimensions and prettier decorations. President Cole rejected the offer in terms that left no room for misunderstanding. Humanity would accept nothing less than complete freedom to explore the galaxy and develop relationships with any species they chose. The hegemony could adapt to a universe where humans were equal partners, or they could face the consequences of continued aggression. Director Helen Murphy established the first human embassy on a liberated alien world where former hegemony slaves were learning to govern themselves with assistance from human advisors who understood the challenges of building free societies. The cooperation between species was creating new possibilities for peace and prosperity throughout the galaxy. Dr. Carter made another breakthrough discovery when she realized that the ancient Greek technology was not just about manipulating physical forces, but also about enhancing human consciousness itself. The ZEUS operators were developing mental abilities that allowed them to perceive and interact with quantum fields directly without needing mechanical interfaces. The evolution was gradual, but undeniable as human crews working with ancient technology began displaying enhanced intuition pattern recognition and problem-solving abilities that seemed almost telepathic in nature. They were becoming something more than baseline humanity had ever been before, while remaining fundamentally human in their values and motivations. General Patricia Kim oversaw the training programs for new ZEUS platform operators, discovering that the ancient control systems responded best to individuals who combined technical knowledge with creative imagination and strong moral principles. The Greeks had designed their technology to be used only by people who would employ it responsibly for the benefit of civilization. The galaxy was changing rapidly as more species broke free from hegemony control and established independent governments, based on principles of freedom and cooperation rather than domination and fear. Humanity had become the catalyst for a revolution that was transforming the entire structure of galactic civilization. The blockade that was supposed to contain human aggression had instead unleashed human potential on a scale that would reshape the universe itself. 6 months after the destruction of the hegemony blockade fleet, Earth had become the most important planet in the galaxy as representatives from hundreds of oppressed species arrived seeking alliance with the humans who had finally broken the chains of alien tyranny. The same beings who had once dismissed humanity as primitive and dangerous now recognized them as liberators and potential saviors of galactic civilization. Ambassador Maria Santos established the first Galactic Freedom Council on Luna Base, bringing together delegates from 47 different species who had successfully overthrown hegemony control in their home systems. The meetings were chaotic at first because many of the aliens had never participated in democratic decision-making, but they were all united by their determination to prevent any return to the old system of oppression. Dr. Carter continued her analysis of ancient Greek artifacts, discovering that the original creators had faced almost identical challenges when dealing with hostile alien empires that viewed human potential as a threat to established order. The ZEUS technology was specifically designed to level the playing field between species by giving consciousness direct control over fundamental forces of reality. The most remarkable discovery was a series of stone tablets that contained detailed historical records of the ancient conflict between humans and an alien confederation that had tried to prevent Earth from developing advanced civilization. The Greeks had won that war by transcending physical limitations entirely and achieving a form of existence that made conventional military force irrelevant. Captain Lisa Brooks led reconnaissance missions to former hegemony strongholds, discovering massive industrial complexes that had been used to manufacture surveillance and control devices for oppressing member species. The facilities contained enough advanced technology to accelerate human development by centuries, but they also revealed the true scope of alien tyranny that had dominated the galaxy for millennia. The hegemony system of control was more sophisticated than anyone had realized because it operated through subtle manipulation of planetary cultures rather than obvious military occupation. Alien advisors would infiltrate developing civilizations and gradually redirect their social and technological development to ensure they never became capable of independent thought or action. Human psychologist Dr. Kevin Ward studied the psychological profiles of liberated alien populations, discovering that most species had been systematically conditioned to believe they were incapable of self-governance or technological innovation. Breaking free from hegemony control required not just military victory but complete mental and cultural revolution. The process of liberation was accelerating as ZEUS platforms appeared in star systems throughout the galaxy, providing defensive coverage for species attempting to overthrow their alien overlords. The ancient Greek technology seemed to inspire courage and determination in any consciousness that came into contact with it, as if the original creators had embedded their own revolutionary spirit into the quantum foundations of the devices. Admiral Wells coordinated military support for liberation movements while maintaining strict policies against offensive operations that might harm innocent populations. The ZEUS platforms were powerful enough to destroy entire star systems, but they were used exclusively for defensive purposes and precision strikes against specific targets that threatened civilian populations. The Hegemony Council was facing the collapse of their empire as member species declared independence and formed new alliances based on mutual cooperation rather than enforced submission. Their response was to withdraw their remaining forces to heavily fortified core worlds while broadcasting propaganda claiming that galactic civilization would collapse into chaos without their guidance and control. President Cole addressed the newly formed Galactic Freedom Council, explaining that humanity had no interest in replacing hegemony tyranny with human domination. The goal was to create a truly free galaxy where every species could develop according to its own nature and values while cooperating with others for mutual benefit and protection against external threats. The speech was broadcast to every inhabited world in the galaxy, establishing human leadership through moral authority rather than military force. Other species were beginning to understand that humans possessed something unique among galactic civilizations, which was the ability to remain humble and cooperative even when wielding overwhelming technological advantages. Commander Tom Anderson established the first joint human-alien colony on a planet that had been strip-mined by hegemony industrial operations. The cooperation between different species in rebuilding the devastated world demonstrated that galactic civilization could function perfectly well without centralized control from alien authorities who claimed to know what was best for everyone. Dr. Carter made contact with other researchers who had discovered similar ancient artifacts on their own worlds, suggesting that the Greek civilization had established colonies throughout the galaxy before achieving transcendence. The network of hidden technology was much larger than originally suspected, and might include devices capable of effects that made ZEUS platform abilities look simple by comparison. The implications were staggering because it meant that advanced human civilization had once spanned the entire galaxy before voluntarily withdrawing from physical existence to allow younger species to develop naturally. The current conflict was essentially a family reunion between modern humans and the technological legacy of their ancient predecessors. Engineer Kate Sullivan led teams that were reverse engineering captured hegemony technology, discovering that alien science was actually quite primitive compared to what humans were achieving through consciousness-assisted quantum manipulation. The aliens had achieved their dominance through superior numbers and organization, rather than fundamental technological advantages. The revelation explained why the hegemony had been so desperate to suppress human development, because they recognized that humanity carried genetic and cultural programming that would eventually lead to capabilities far beyond anything they possessed. The blockade had been an attempt to prevent humans from rediscovering their true heritage and potential. General Kim established training programs for liberated alien populations who wanted to learn how to operate defensive versions of ZEUS technology. The ancient control systems responded to any consciousness that approached them with genuine desire to protect freedom and promote cooperation, but they remained inactive for individuals motivated by conquest or domination. The galaxy was experiencing the greatest transformation in its recorded history as the old system of centralized control gave way to networks of free cooperating civilizations that were achieving technological and social advances at unprecedented rates. Dr. Amy Carter stood in the newly discovered chamber beneath the ruins of ancient Athens, staring at holographic displays that had activated automatically when she entered the room. The technology was clearly thousands of years old, but it functioned perfectly and seemed to be waiting for modern humans to finally reach the point where they could understand what their predecessors had accomplished. The chamber contained complete records of ancient human civilization, including detailed star charts showing colonies that had once existed throughout the galaxy. The scope was breathtaking because it revealed that modern humanity was not exploring unknown territory but returning to worlds that had once been home to their own species in the distant past. Professor David Chen translated the ancient Greek text that appeared on the displays, discovering that the original creators had anticipated exactly this situation. They had known that their descendants would eventually face hostile alien species, attempting to prevent human development, and they had prepared detailed instructions for using consciousness-based technology to defend against such threats. The most important revelation was that ZEUS platform represented only basic-level technology compared to what the ancients had actually achieved. They had developed systems capable of manipulating matter and energy at the quantum level, creating artificial realities that were indistinguishable from natural phenomena, and even transferring consciousness between different dimensional frameworks. Captain Steve Johnson led exploration missions to coordinates provided by the ancient star charts, discovering that many of the listed worlds still contained functioning installations left behind by the original human colonists. The facilities had remained dormant for millennia, but activated immediately when modern humans approached them, as if recognizing genetic and cultural signatures of their creators. The installations contained manufacturing systems that could produce advanced technology using nothing more than raw cosmic materials and consciousness-directed quantum manipulation. Human crews were learning to operate equipment that seemed to respond to thoughts and intentions rather than conventional control interfaces. Admiral Wells received reports from throughout the galaxy as human exploration teams made contact with dozens of dormant ancient facilities. Each installation was perfectly preserved and fully operational, despite having been abandoned for thousands of years. The technology seemed to exist outside normal time flow, which explained how it could remain functional indefinitely. The ancient humans had not disappeared or died out as originally assumed. According to the records, they had achieved complete transcendence of physical limitations and chosen to exist in higher dimensional spaces while leaving behind technological inheritance for their eventual descendants to discover and utilize. Dr. Ward studied psychological profiles of humans who were working closely with ancient technology, noting significant changes in cognitive abilities and consciousness expansion. The individuals were developing enhanced pattern recognition, telepathic, sensitivity, and intuitive understanding of quantum mechanical principles that normally required years of advanced education. The evolution appeared to be gradual and natural rather than artificial modification, suggesting that the ancient technology was designed to activate dormant genetic programming that had always existed in human DNA. Modern humans were not becoming something alien, but rather rediscovering capabilities that their species had possessed in the distant past. Engineer Ben Parker supervised the construction of new ZEUS platforms using manufacturing techniques learned from ancient installations. The process was far more efficient than conventional human engineering because it involved directly manipulating matter at the atomic level through consciousness-guided quantum field manipulation. The implications were revolutionary for human civilization because it meant that scarcity and resource limitations were essentially artificial constraints that could be overcome through proper application of consciousness-based technology. Ancient humans had achieved post-scarcity civilization by learning to create whatever they needed from basic cosmic materials. President Cole established new policies for managing the integration of ancient technology with modern human society, ensuring that the capabilities would be used responsibly and for the benefit of all humanity, rather than creating new forms of inequality or oppression. The power to reshape reality carried corresponding responsibilities that required wisdom and moral development. The Hegemony Council made one final attempt to reassert control by launching a massive invasion fleet toward Earth using every remaining military asset they possessed. The alien armada consisted of over 300 capital ships supported by thousands of smaller vessels representing the combined military might of their remaining member species. Admiral Wells coordinated the defense of Earth using a network of ZEUS platforms that had been established throughout the solar system. The ancient technology made it possible to create defensive effects that covered entire star systems while requiring minimal energy expenditure and human personnel. The battle was brief and decisive as ZEUS platforms generated coordinated gravitational anomalies that disabled the entire Hegemony invasion fleet without destroying any of the ships or harming their crews. The aliens found themselves stranded in space with non-functional vessels, while human rescue teams provided assistance and offered safe passage to any species that wanted to join the growing alliance of free civilizations. Dr. Carter activated communication systems in the ancient chamber that opened direct contact with the transcended humans who existed in higher dimensional spaces. The conversation was brief but profoundly meaningful, as the original creators expressed their pride in what their descendants had accomplished and offered guidance for the next phase of human development. The transcended ancients explained that consciousness was the fundamental force that shaped all reality and that sufficiently advanced beings could manipulate the universe through directed intention backed by proper understanding of quantum mechanics. Physical technology was merely a tool for focusing and amplifying mental abilities that existed naturally in all conscious beings. Commander Morrison received new assignments to establish permanent human presence in star systems throughout the galaxy using ancient installations as bases for exploration and peaceful contact with indigenous species. The goal was to create a network of cooperation and mutual assistance that would prevent any future attempts at galactic domination. The ancient inheritance was transforming not just human capabilities, but human understanding of their role in cosmic evolution. They were not conquerors or rulers, but gardeners, whose purpose was to nurture the development of consciousness throughout the universe while protecting the freedom and dignity of all sentient beings. The galaxy would never again be controlled by tyrannical empires because humans had rediscovered the technology and wisdom necessary to ensure that freedom and cooperation would always triumph over oppression and domination. 1 year after the breaking of the hegemony blockade, the galaxy had transformed into something that would have been unrecognizable to anyone who remembered the old system of centralized alien control. Hundreds of species that had been enslaved for millennia were now governing themselves and cooperating freely with humans and each other to build a new civilization based on mutual respect and shared prosperity. President Robert Cole stood before the assembled delegates of the Galactic Freedom Alliance, addressing representatives from over 200 different species who had successfully liberated themselves from hegemony oppression. The meeting was being held on New Athens, a planet that had been reconstructed using ancient human technology to serve as a neutral gathering place for all free civilizations. The transformation had exceeded every optimistic prediction, as liberated species rapidly developed their own versions of consciousness-based technology using principles learned from human advisors and ancient installations. The galaxy was experiencing an unprecedented renaissance of scientific discovery and cultural achievement that was accelerating at exponential rates. Dr. Carter presented her latest research findings, showing that the ancient human civilization had established similar liberation movements throughout the galaxy over the course of thousands of years. The pattern was always the same, with tyrannical empires arising to suppress developing species, until humans appeared to break the cycle and restore freedom to oppressed populations. The discovery suggested that modern humanity was part of an ancient cosmic plan designed to ensure that consciousness could develop naturally throughout the universe without interference from beings who feared change and progress. The ZEUS technology was not just a weapon, but a tool for nurturing the evolution of awareness and intelligence on a galactic scale. Admiral Wells coordinated joint military exercises involving human crews and alien volunteers who were learning to operate defensive versions of ZEUS platforms. The training was proceeding rapidly because the ancient technology seemed to enhance learning abilities and accelerate skill development in anyone who worked with it regularly. The former hegemony core worlds had been transformed into rehabilitation centers where alien populations were learning to think and act independently after generations of conditioning that had taught them to accept authoritarian control without question. The process was difficult but encouraging as more species rediscovered their capacity for self-governance and creative problem-solving. Commander Jake Morrison led diplomatic missions to star systems that had remained neutral during the Galactic Revolution, establishing peaceful contact with species that were still deciding whether to join the new alliance or maintain their independence. The human approach was always to offer assistance and cooperation without demanding submission or tribute in return. The economic transformation was as dramatic as the political changes because consciousness-based technology had eliminated scarcity and resource competition that had driven conflicts for thousands of years. Species could now create whatever they needed from basic cosmic materials using quantum manipulation techniques that required only mental focus and proper understanding of natural principles. Dr. Ward established psychological counseling programs for liberated alien populations, helping them overcome trauma and conditioning that had prevented them from developing their full potential. The work was challenging because many species had been systematically taught to believe they were inferior to their alien overlords and incapable of independent achievement. The healing process was accelerated by exposure to ancient human technology, which seemed to inspire confidence and self-esteem in any consciousness that interacted with it. The quantum fields generated by ZEUS platforms had therapeutic effects that helped damaged minds restore their natural capacity for growth and learning. Engineer Kate Sullivan supervised the construction of new cities on liberated worlds using architectural principles that combined ancient human design concepts with cultural preferences of local species. The results were beautiful and functional communities that celebrated diversity while promoting cooperation and mutual understanding. The construction projects were serving as practical demonstrations of how different species could work together effectively when freed from artificial barriers and prejudices that had been imposed by the old system. Cooperation was proving to be far more efficient and satisfying than competition or domination. Captain Ryan Hughes established the first intergalactic exploration program, sending joint human-alien crews to investigate what lay beyond the borders of the known galaxy. The missions were discovering that the universe contained countless other galaxies where similar struggles between freedom and tyranny were taking place. The implications were staggering because it suggested that the current transformation was part of a cosmic pattern that repeated itself throughout the universe as consciousness evolved and developed new capabilities for shaping reality according to ethical principles rather than selfish desires. Dr. Carter made direct contact with transcended human ancestors who provided guidance for the next phase of galactic development. The conversation revealed that modern humanity was approaching its own opportunity for transcendence, but would need to complete the work of liberating oppressed consciousness throughout the local galaxy cluster first. The ancient beings explained that transcendence was not escape from physical reality, but rather achievement of sufficient wisdom and power to serve as guardians and nurturers of developing civilizations. The responsibility was enormous, but so were the rewards of participating in cosmic evolution at the highest levels. General Patricia Kim coordinated defensive preparations for potential threats from outside the galaxy, discovering that the ancient installation network extended far beyond local space. Humanity and its allies were part of a vast community of free civilizations that spanned multiple galaxies and dimensions. The network was designed to ensure that tyrannical empires could never again achieve the kind of dominance that the hegemony had maintained for so long. Freedom-loving species throughout the universe were connected by quantum communication systems that allowed instant coordination of defensive responses to any threat. The galaxy had become a place where every species could develop according to its own nature and values, while contributing to the collective welfare and security of all civilizations. The ancient dream of a universe governed by wisdom and compassion, rather than fear and domination, was finally becoming reality. Humanity had discovered that their true destiny was not conquest or empire building, but service as cosmic gardeners whose purpose was to nurture the growth of consciousness and protect the freedom of all sentient beings throughout the infinite expanse of creation itself.